There are a lot of opinions about what direction to go. There have been no decisions about what exactly we will do. But we're going to continue to work with our members on both sides of the aisle to try to make sure that there's no issue of default and to get our government reopened.
All right, having covered this for a while, let me try and put that political language into common sense. What Mr. Boehner said was, we have no idea what we do next or where we're going to go from here, but we're going to keep on doing it. And I could also describe our panel that way. Brandon Bryce, here, Republican strategist, columnist for the Washington Times Community Section. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. Anybody have any clue how this thing ends? I really thought last night we ended the show. There'd be a lot of dance tonight, but before the end, before they went home tonight, we'd have some kind of a deal. Your guess is good as mine. Anybody have an idea how this shakes out?
You've been very optimistic the last few days.
Oh, I have. Am I optimistic that you guys all call me delusion and maybe you're right? I have no clue.
You know, it's interesting. I think that the problem that Boehner said that he doesn't even know how this is going to pan out, and he's the speaker. I think that speaks to not only the lack of leadership and not only the speaker seat, but even against President Obama. But it's saying that, listen, this is about the government.
Please, I've heard this all day. What the heck does President Obama have or can do at this point? This is in Boehner's hands. The Senate's working on something. They asked him to stay out of it. He was supposed to have that 3 o'clock meeting yesterday. He said, fine, I step back. McConnell and Reid, who hate each other, kind of worked out a deal. Now it's going to go to the House. What possible role could the president do that wouldn't make this situation worse?
I think that the president early on could have come up with some form of negotiation before it even got to this point. The fact that it ended up in McConnell, hold on, the fact that it ended up between McConnell and Harry Reid, I think was the problem in itself. And I think going further, I think Boehner now has to decide, does he want to be speaker? Or he has to decide, does he want to actually accomplish something in his speakership? And I think that's what it boils down to.
But the idea that the GOP even know what they wanted in the House. Well, you heard Nunes today, right? That Republican from California, relatively a new elected to the House. He called them lemmings. He called them lunatics. And he said, I come from the world of business. You strike a deal. You negotiate. You at some point you recognize the landscape.
But he's also in a variable district. He's not in a very red district. And Republican House members who are in very red districts have not felt any pain from this. They still don't, there's no reason for them to give yet.
Right,
and so they're not taking the feet off the fire.
90, 60, there's a moving target how many Tea Party members are. Do you believe down deep? Because you played, you ran a clip there from, I think, a Florida Republican that said, you know what, they're going to have to give, otherwise we're going to go over the limit here.
They have to give.
Right, as if America doesn't get hurt. It's the Democrats. Is it that they are so, they believe this stuff, they look at this as a political lever, or that they're just playing this thing out because they got no downside?
I think there's a little bit of both, and I think the world in which they politically inhabit doesn't see a downside to having a default. The Fox News, the conservative, the hot airs, that whole universe and what they're hearing at their tea parties, there's no downside for it. You asked how this whole thing ends, and I immediately think back to 2008, the bailout day, when the markets were tanking, down 1,000 points in a day, and the House had to come and vote, and by the way, didn't pass the bailout. And it wound up having to go through the Senate. So my guess is this ends Friday, maybe Monday. We go past the deadline. Wall Street starts selling out. That's the only pressure. That's the only flame that goes to these Republicans that gets them to move.
Richard, I think if you had 3 U.S. senators sitting here tonight, they couldn't tell you how this is going to end. But I also really believe deep down that it's reaching the point that these conservative House Tea Party Republicans are bent on embarrassing this president.
But you know what?
I really am.
I know you say that, and I know that there's merit to what you're saying, but this is so far past this. I mean, the words we heard today, imagine you have the Democratic leader in the House saying that they're trying to sabotage the process, and nobody says that she's wrong. I don't know where they go from here. And as a poll number, as a party, midterms next year. Republicans want to not only keep the House, but get the Senate, okay? And 74% of the American public disapproves of the way they do it. They're clearly blaming them for it. And there are Republicans, the ones who are most angry right now, are those in those swing districts who say, I'm going to get blamed for the lunatics. So at what point does Boehner say, I thought this was all part of a strategy that he wanted to basically break the fever now? At some point, he's got to call their bluff.
The only fever, I think, is Boehner keeping his job. And I think it comes down to, I mean, before you even get into the Tea Party rhetoric, before you get into, you know, there's a lynch mob against the president, it comes down to leadership and cutting a deal to move the country forward. It's about America's paying its bills, and that's what it is about.
Okay,
Mind
you're
you,
John Boehner, though. What are your choices tonight? You got to either say to the caucus, reality check, guys, I can't even get the votes.
Right.
I mean, how many times has he been embarrassed here where he's going to call for a vote and doesn't have the votes to do it? And why should the Democrats help him out here? That's insane. So he's now going to say to him, guys, I'm washing my hands. We're going to have a clean CR on the floor tomorrow. Vote your conscience. And if you're going to throw me out of office, I'll hold a press conference and I'll tell everybody why I no longer am Speaker of my party. And then you're on your own.
But Richard, that's easier said than done. I mean, this is. I mean, let's mind you, this is a job that. I mean, let's just keep it real. This is a job that this man has been trying to get for years. Now that he's got it, he's got to make the decision, the conscious decision. Does he A, keep his job, or B, do something to move the country forward?
But isn't there some point here where you think he likes getting up in the morning every day and dealing with this? Where he's the punchline, and in his own party,
I think he likes being speaker.
I don't know why.
I think you described a lot of people at their workplace. I think there's a lot. How many people here have ever walked out of, quit a job because they just didn't like the way things were going?
A job making $170,000 a year,
People don't do that. And he's the Speaker
with
of
the private plane.
With the
as
private
Speaker.
plane.
been trying for decades to become Speaker. Only became leader of the Republican caucus in 2007.
Okay, but if you're now connoting that we don't see ever political leadership in American history, that we don't see people willing to make tough decisions, we don't see Republicans today on the Hill calling out their fellow members, you're wrong. And maybe I still hold on to some belief that there is such a thing as political courage in this country.
Really?
The people who do that, the people who call out their other party, have the political capital to back up that courage.
Right.
Peter
Absolutely.
King, in about to lose his seat for calling out Todd Aiken, or well, he's not in, but for calling out a
I'll
Tea
tell you
Party.
one, Senator Murkowski, who I don't exactly agree with everything for Alaska, what did she do? She and other fellow senators, she says, I'm going to pay a price back at home here, but why am I here if I'm not supposed to do the right thing for the country?
Difference in the Senate when you have the entire state that you can campaign in, as opposed to a congressperson with one gerrymandered
Here's the
district.
problem. Come Friday, okay, and I don't want to be right about this, but I think I am. They don't have a deal on Friday. Everybody's going to feel this. You got a 401k? You're going to feel this. You got an adjustable rate mortgage on a car, on your home, on anything else. All of a sudden, you're going to feel this. Forget about our standing in the world, and forget about there's a certain point where people go elsewhere to put their money, not just in the U.S., and our credit rating goes down. We don't pay Social Security, retirees, and all the rest here. This is real, people. This isn't political stupidity.
But Richard, let me ask you a question. The Tea Party Republicans, let's say your scenario is correct. I agree with it. When they go home, do you think they're going to be in trouble, or do you think they're going to get a hero's welcome?
For the first time since they'll go back, okay? Listen, we had on Nan Hayworth here yesterday. In 2008 here, she proudly ran with the banner of the Tea Party.
But
okay?
New York is different.
Oh, time out. She liked that back then. The Tea Party flavor certainly cooled in our region. Now, is it the same thing down in Mississippi? I'm not saying it is. But at a certain point, we've seen this in political history, the flavor runs out. If all of a sudden 70 becomes 40, then they have real, where else are they going to go, by the way?
You know, essentially, I actually disagree with you on this. I don't think New York is any different. I think politics is local, and I think at the end of the day, last time I checked, Con Edison wasn't accepting IOUs, and this is going to be a big issue nationally. Is how do people pay the simple things, pay their rent, pay for their energy? I mean, energy uses. And so I think if this is not passed within the week, I think you're going to not only begin to see a crunch, but I think even the president's numbers are going to start to affect, and then there's going to be pressure to actually pass some kind of bargain.
Well, but everybody's numbers are sliding, and I think that's giving Republicans some hope, too. They can look at however bad it gets and go, it's his fault.
Every Republican says what we're doing right now. They said if the elections, the midterms were today, Republicans would lose the House of Representatives. They're not stupid, or at least some of them are.
I'll believe
they
that
at
when I
least
see
can
it.
figure out that math. All right, when we come back, there is another angle on the D.C. debacle, and that has to do with what we saw on this weekend on the Mall in Washington, and also about the general issues what's driving it. It is the Tea Party. We're going to continue the conversation focusing on that and whether or not the party right now is held hostage by this group and what they could do about it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.